So looking at some issues with soil and soil problems, soil erosion is a huge one. Like we talked about with desertification at the beginning. Clear cutting of areas exposes the soil, so then erosion can happen. Agriculture, when they remove the crops, all that mineral wealth had been then transported into the crops, and then they're transported other places, so you lose that mineral wealth in those areas. And then construction too as well, exposing the soil, removing the vegetation, therefore the soil can be eroded away. If you remember back to maybe some of your English or history classes talking about the American Dust Bowl, severe winds and extensive removal of native plants and overgrazing and poor agricultural practices caused the American Dust Bowl. Nutrient mineral depletion, removal of the vegetation of tropical rainforests completely removes that mineral wealth from that area. Soil problems in the U.S., you tend to find them Iowa, Tennessee, Texas, and Missouri. World soil problems, Africa and Asia have the highest soil damage. Loss of 75 metric tons of topsoil due to poor agricultural practices is really the main reason. And the problem here is that soil just takes so long to form. And if we remove the soil from area or damage soil from certain places, we can't grow crops as well. Therefore, we're put in such a position that we won't be able to meet the supply and the demand of the growing population. So ways to prevent the degradation of soil or the damage of soil, we could look at some conservation methods. Conservation tillage. Tillage is, this individual is tilling the soil here. It's just basically when you turn the soil, aerate it, pull it up, try to bring some mineral wealth from down below and mix it up. Well, conservation tillage is where you leave some of the residue of the old plants in the soil and kind of break them up, and leaving some of that minerals that were trapped in the vegetation, leaving them back in there to be able to decompose. Crop rotation, which means that, say I plant one type of crop here 1 year, after I pull it out, I plant another crop here, and that can actually bring in new nutrients depending on the different types of crops, or can preserve the nutrients. You have organic fertilizers, so you don't bring in so much nitrogen into an area that can easily be run off. And organic fertilizers tend to stay and are harder at causing them to run off. Contour plowing, which we'll look here in a little bit, strip cropping, and terracing as well. So looking closer at conservation tillage, residues from previous crops left in the soil partially covered it and helps to keep hold in place. Fast growing trend in the U.S. agriculture, it reduces soil erosions and have to use more herbicides to control weeds because of this. That is one downside to the conservation tillage. Conventional tillage is remove all vegetation from the land to plant crops. So you can see some examples here where these plants that they're growing, and then the stuff in the middle is the leftover stuff from the year before that helps prevent soil erosion. Crop rotation. The planting of a series of different crops in the same field over a period of years. Planting alfalfa adds nitrogen, fixating bacteria. Soybeans add nitrogen to the soil, and a downfall of this is planting the same crops year after year will increase damage by insects and disease. So you've got this crop rotation where you've got legumes, which is like beans, alliums, root crops, and then brassicas. And if you do that rotation, it helps keep the mineral wealth within the soil. But also the downside is it increases insects quantities and disease quantities. Contour plowing, we'll see here in a second, where fields are plowed and then planted in curves to conform to the natural contours of the land. Helps with water runoff. Strip cropping, type of contour plowing that produces alternative strips of different crops. Terracing, which you'll see in a lot of South American and Asian cultures, where they will kind of carve away at a mountainside, and it looks like a stepladder. That helps with soil erosion, prevents soil erosion because you can trap water in certain areas and you don't get this water just tearing away at the land. And then also shelter belts, which prevents wind from eroding soil. And it's almost like a fence. So here we have contour plowing, how it moves in the natural forms of the land, helps with water runoff. Terracing, here is that what I was talking about, the stepladder, prevents soil erosions on elevated areas for agriculture. And then shelter belts here, which are these plants that act like a fence that block the wind, so preventing wind erosion to the soil. And then preserving soil fertility, using those organic fertilizers. They take longer amounts of time to work properly, but they tend to last longer and don't leach out as fast. Consist of manure, crop residue, and bone meal. Compost is a natural soil and humus mixture. And that's where you just take mulch, dead food, or old food, and mix it all together with the natural soil to make compost. Inorganic fertilizers instantly work, but they don't last very long and they leach out very rapidly. And if they leach out, they get into lakes, causing eutrophication. And the last thing you need to know for this is the Soil Conservation Act of 1935, which was formed the Soil Conservation Service. Hint, hint, wink, wink, just know that.